to the Wandering Dotterill. When I was working at the Arizona State Fair, I was selling island plumeria. It was a stick. It was a tree, but it was a stick. And so I had to sell sticks of plumeria trees.
What?
And these two guys walked up to me, and they were either affiliated with or the voice actors for Beavis and Butthead. When I was working at the Arizona State Fair, I was selling sticks of island plumeria. That was the terrible job I had. And the reason it was so terrible was because I needed to pay my rent. And I was making about $10 a day, but it was about 8 to 10 hours a day.
What?
For 30 days. And about the midway through the month, these two guys walked up to me and said, "Hey, baby, it's a girl." And they sounded exactly like Beavis and Butthead. I'm not sure if they were the voice actors, because it was early. It was early before Beavis and Butthead was a thing. The cool thing about working at the Arizona State Fair was it was held next to the Phoenix Suns Stadium, which was pretty awesome. We didn't celebrate holidays or birthdays in my family. Not with my dad and stepmom, or my mom and my stepdad, or in foster care, or when I lived at the haunted orphanage. The only time I remember ever celebrating anything was my 13th birthday, which was pretty cool, I have to admit. My dad and my stepmom took me to the Tower Restaurant, which is no longer operating today. But at the time, it was a huge hit. You take an elevator up in the air. It was about 750 feet up in the air into the restaurant that rotates around the center of the building. And you get to look out the windows and see downtown Dallas-Fort Worth. And at the time, the restaurant was positioned over the assassination site of John F. Kennedy. So I was a tween becoming a young lady, and things weren't going so well. I had my first bedroom that was in a house. Before that, we always lived in trailer houses or rentals, and it was not always conducive for me to have my own bedroom. Sometimes I slept on the couch at my mom's house, or on the floor, or in a strange bedroom somewhere. But this one in particular time, there was no bed, there was no furniture, and I really didn't have much as a kid anyway. But I went to school that day and came home, and there was a strawberry shortcake bed in my room, which was a canopy bed that had like a twin mattress on it and drawers underneath. And it had a pink canopy with strawberry shortcake on it with cupcakes, and it was like a princess bed. But the joy of that didn't last very long, because I was informed shortly thereafter that the bed was not for me. My stepmom came up to me and she said, "That bed's not for you. I'm just going to let you borrow it." I would be given the chore with no real instructions. I had certain things I was supposed to do, but no direction. So if I had to clean the bathroom, I was sent to the bathroom to clean it with no cleaning supplies.
What?
And there was a time that I remember that I came out of the bathroom and said, I need cleaning supplies. How am I supposed to clean the bathroom, the toilet, the shower, the floor? And my stepmother informed me everything you need is in the bathroom. And there was only toilet paper in the bathroom.
What?
So I learned how to shine everything with sheets of toilet paper. It was absolutely terrible. It was horrible. This is your host, the Dingy Dotterel. There is no ending Cinderella story in this whatsoever. Not only did my stepmother make me clean, when I went to my mother's house, she had me cleaning also. And she was working in these resort houses that were up in the mountains that were quite unaffordable by anyone's standards at the time, near Eagle and Eagle Vale and Vail, Colorado. It was absolutely gorgeous, but the situation was I would show up and she would head off to work up in the mountains and we would go clean, where I was instructed to take off my clothes.
What?
And clean under the furniture and the bathrooms and the shower. And I was, like in the story of Cinderella, the redheaded stepchild. I grew used to it because I found peace in the quiet. And the peace was not being abused, not being threatened. If I did my job, then people left me alone. And if I did my job too well, then I would get harassed. So I learned how to interact with those around me, with my mom and with my stepmom, in a way that didn't make me look like I was doing too good of a job. Because anything that I did that was good, of course, I received punishment. There were times that I had to do jobs for my dad, and doing any type of work for him was quite scary, because not only did he call me the boy that he never had,
What?
he had a son, and I wasn't it. I was a girl. And so there were a few times when I did something good, and he would compliment me by saying I was the boy that he never had. One in particular time, we were in the garage and he was changing the oil in his own car, and he was talking and I was listening, and he proceeded to scream at me because he had forgotten to replace the oil plug on the car after the oil had drained, and he started putting in new oil and had poured through oil and started blaming me for it and started screaming at me, and he made me cry. And at that moment, he was the only one ever in all of the adults around me that stopped and said, I'm sorry for making you cry. It was my fault. This is for all the women listeners. You know, back in the day, things were different. The way I was raised made it difficult for me. Getting a job and the experience that I had with cleaning and odd jobs that were labor intensive, you didn't get the best of treatment. Most of the people around were chauvinistic and sexist, and they would make rude comments about your body or your looks, or say certain things like, I like a woman like this, or I like a woman like that.
What?
I've put up with all kinds in the jobs that I've worked. And the thing about it is that things have changed quite a bit. We need to be thankful that nowadays there's more equality than there was, 20, 30 years ago. But I've seen it and heard it all. I've been in jobs where I was trying to do better and earn more money and have the manager or the boss or the person that was overseeing the department summarily terminate me.
What?
Saying that I wasn't doing my job because I was doing too much of my job or not enough of what they wanted because they were doing something illegal or underhanded, and I caught on to it. So I've always kind of had the upper or lower hand, which didn't turn out so well either way. Being a woman and where I came from, how my mother was raised, because my mother... So being a woman and coming from where I came from, being raised around different types of women, I either had the upper hand or the lower hand, which was not good either way. I either knew too much, or like I was saying before, being around my mom did not graduate high school. She came from a family of 15 children, but she was gorgeous. She was intimidating because she was loud, and her smoking and drinking was attractive to people around her, men and women alike. And so I learned from my mother that because she smelled nice and she looked beautiful, that was attractive, and I found it repulsive. I didn't fit in. I was raised like a lanky, redheaded stepchild, but like a boy. And so I looked like a punk rocker until I was in my early 20s. I stuck out, and I was the labor-intensive, not Cinderella type. I didn't have good self-esteem. I did what I was told. And that went on for many years, with me having jobs that were just not good for my body. I didn't deserve the respect I deserved. I didn't get the respect I deserved. In other words, I did earn respect when I started doing elder care. Don't get me wrong. And there were times I quit jobs because people disrespected me, or they made sexist comments, or they made a pass at me, or they tried to hurt me. I did quit jobs because of that, which made my life very difficult, especially when you've been raised to think that abuse is normal. I allowed that to go on in my personal relationships. And I'm not condoning that. I'm not saying that's okay. I'm just saying that's the way I understood it to be. I understood that violence was part of life, and that I should take the violence. I should take the punishment or the abuse, the maltreatment. That was the way my mind was wrapping around the situation, which was completely untrue. The other part to that is how women react to other women who have been in abuse, or if they've grown up in dysfunction and toxicity like I did. I have caught women talking rudely, gossiping about me and saying, we don't make a full-time job out of going to college. That's not what it's for. Or, boy, she sure has changed. I know who she is. I've heard it all, and I've seen it all. And believe me, when you are raised the way I was, you learn to hear what people are saying. You hear what they're saying, how they're responding to you, and it creates toxicity around you. And then there's those that think they know who you are, and they say something and spread a lie about you, especially when they don't know what they're talking about, but they do it anyway. And that goes on, especially if you live in a small town. The other side to being raised the way I was being silent and not knowing how to combat the problem or change my destiny, change my outlook on life. I just allowed terrible things to happen and terrible things to go on when they shouldn't, which is quite unfortunate. But it's the way the mind works when you're uneducated and you're struggling to fit in somewhere. You choose terrible partners, you choose bad friends, not knowing because you don't have the wisdom. You just learn to carry the air of trust, and it may not be trust until you get burned. And what I mean by that is you learn to trust people that shouldn't be trusted, and you learn to put out the tentacles of feelings when you shouldn't feel, when you should be weeding out those bad actors in your life. And so that's the lesson for today. I hope you like the Spotify podcast, the improv of my life, and I hope you share the content. Thanks, Spotify.
Hey.
Welcome to the Wandering Dotterel.